In the last episode of this series, we were working with a direction for the sacrum, which was to rotate the top of the sacrum backwards using the bottom of the sacrum as the center of rotation. This was in order to bring the pelvis and the torso generally backwards in space, but it would also prevent us from bringing the lower sacrum any further back. Since most people already have their lower sacrum back, we did not want to move it further back. And we finished with a question, which was, what other part of the torso do we not want to move back during this adjustment? I've mentioned many times in this series that people tend to rotate their ribcage back and down, which causes the sternum to be angled. When the ribcage is oriented like this, the upper sternum is too far back. So when we make this adjustment with the pelvis, which is the bottom of the torso, we do not want the top of the torso to go back. We are perfectly happy if the middle torso goes back. The lower ribs, the abdomen, the iliacs, they can all go back, but we do not want the upper sternum to go back. We can see in this video of me making an adjustment that this is not easy at first. When I move my pelvis back, my upper sternum, my shoulders, and my head all clearly move back in space. This is not what we want. The reason this happens is quite simple. Your pelvis and ribcage are connected by numerous muscles, fascia, and connective tissue, as well as your spine. If you pull on one, you will pull on the other. When someone makes an adjustment to pull their pelvis back and up, that will pull the ribcage back. If you have a habit of pulling your upper sternum and upper torso backwards, as most people do, when your ribcage is pulled back, you will move the top back more quickly than the bottom. This will cause the ribcage to be tilted back in an undesirable way. And despite the good adjustment at the pelvis, the condition of the torso will not really improve. Similarly, if you went to undo that tilting back of the ribcage by moving the top end forward, but you did not consider your pelvis, then the forward movement of your ribcage would pull the back of your pelvis forward. And even if you succeed in getting your upper sternum forward, your pelvis will become angled in an undesirable way. Doing just one adjustment of either the pelvis or the ribcage is not all that difficult to do once you've had some practice, but adjusting just one end of the torso will never get you to better posture. The only way for these adjustments to work is to put both movements into action simultaneously. If you anticipate that an adjustment of the pelvis will pull on the ribcage, you can prevent your ribcage from being pulled back at the top. The key is to know an adjustment of one end of the torso will pull on the other end of the torso. So you have to consider that before you make your adjustment. You do not want to do one adjustment and then the other. You want to adjust both ends of your torso at the same time. Doing so will stretch your back. In a very real way, you will be pulling your back apart and pulling it into its full length. This is exactly what we want. We want to stretch and lengthen the thoracolumbar fascia, which goes up and down your back. This is really the first step in getting adjustments to really benefit you. If you can adjust your pelvis and ribcage at the same time, you will start to change your habitual equilibrium, and you can start to get the support of your fascia in a way that you have likely never had before. But just because you give yourself a set of directions does not mean you have followed those directions. As I showed you earlier, I had every intention of not allowing my upper sternum to go back during this adjustment, but I failed to do so. How can we deal with this problem? How can we make sure that we are actually succeeding in what we intend to do? Join me in the next episode and find out.